And I'll send you this recording either at the end of the day today or tomorrow once it processes. So welcome. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so today's training is on engagement tools. The three that were part of the kind of description is checklists, awards or badges, and intelligent agents. Before we get into all of those, just because there are some fun things that you can do too that you may not completely know about, and so I'm just going to mention three other things that are, I'm just going to kind of show you before we dive into those three bigger tools, which are, it's an easy way to kind of add personalization. So it's less about engagement, but it is personalization that helps your students kind of connect with you in this time. So the first one I want to mention is, well, actually two of them at the same time I'll mention, is something called replace strings and video note. If you've heard of either of these things, not in the chat, but in the participant window, if you can click on the little yes or no, there's a little icon if you open your participant window. If you've heard of video note or replace strings, it'd be great to get a yes or a no in there. Great, some of you have. Some of you haven't. That's great.
No, actually that's wrong. Replacement strings, yes, I've heard of that. Video notes, no.
Okay, I'll show both. Thanks for that clarification.
I don't see that where we're supposed to answer.
Oh, sure. In the little toolbar that's at the bottom of our Zoom window, there's something that says, one of the icons is participants. And if you open that, it'll open a new participant window where you'll see a yes, no, go slower, go faster at the bottom of our participant list.
It's so small I can't see. And it's your controls. I don't have any controls on my on mine.
Hi Sue, it's Jennifer. Click on participants. It has number 12 on it. It's at the bottom if you move your cursor around the bottom, and then there'll be a yes, no.
I have an iPad which has nothing, no controls here.
Maybe it's not so important right now.
Yeah, it's okay
no,
if
I
you
just
can't.
have the screen and everything else is black, no controls. Anyway, I don't know.
No problem. Don't. That's okay. You don't have to. You can just watch along then.
Okay.
Okay. So video note is this little beautiful video that I put in an announcement here. Anywhere in Brightspace, you can add anywhere that you can add text. You can add what's called a video note in Brightspace. So I happen to put one here in the announcements, but I can also add that to a content area. I can add it to a test if I wanted to. I can also add it when I'm giving feedback for students' responses. But what's really nice about this—
Is it always you? It's you recording yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more just what it is?
I'm going to go into it. Yeah, it's you just recording yourself. You can't record the screen like you might do a Zoom recording, but it's for you to record yourself, either your voice or your whole face, talking to the students. So this example that I have in here was me telling, and I'll play it in a second, was me telling the students, good job.
Hi students, I think you did a really good job. You had some grammar issues. Watch out about your thesis statement and have a conclusion.
So I'll go into how this was created, like how you use insert stuff, but the use of this, I've seen some teachers that are using it now for like a weekly or every, you know, if your class is every 2 weeks, doing a video note right in the announcement to tell them what it is that they should be working on this week. And it just adds that little personalization. So if I were to, I'm going to use an announcement in this example, but if I were to click a new announcement, and let's just call this welcome, or it could be week of April 13th. And in this bar where I would, you know, typically write my welcome message, welcome class, blah, blah. In here, there's this option called insert stuff, which is this little icon, this triangle at the top left corner. And if you click on that, there's an option here that says add video note. When you do this, oh, I have to turn off my video in Zoom. Let me go back. So when you do, oh, now you can see my actual face. So when you do this, it's going to pop up your video right on the screen. You click new recording. Welcome, students. I just wanted to say this week we're going to be working on XYZ. I hope to see you in the Zoom session. You're going to find all you need under content or whatever it might be. You can record up to 60 minutes. I will just warn you, the longer you record, the longer it might take to process. When you're done, you click stop recording. It's going to play it. Welcome, students. It's going to play it right back to you. So you can decide, do I want to delete it or do I want to continue? I don't recommend recording longer than a few minutes, maybe a minute. These aren't meant to be your full lectures, but it is an opportunity to kind of connect with students. I would use Zoom, something like this, to record, you know, a full lecture, because then you can record what's on your screen and all of that. Once you click next, it's going to tell you that it needs a name. So I'm just going to call this week of April 13th. Video. I can also choose for the audio language, it can automatically caption it. So if I choose it for English and I check the box to add automatically caption, then it's ADA compliant, so there's captions attached to it already. This next page is going to say it's currently being transformed. It doesn't matter. I can still click insert and it's going to save it once it's finished converting it. So if I click publish, there's my video there. If I go back to the course home, I have a real quick, super quick message to my students that I can post every week. And that's, again, you can do a video note anywhere that you have that text editor in Brightspace that you see the little insert stuff icon. On those same lines, another way to personalize things is the thing I called replace strings. So replace strings, if I edit the same announcement, and again, this also works anywhere you have the HTML editor, except if you're sending an email through Brightspace to students. It does not work if you're sending an email to students through Brightspace. But if you are posting a piece of content, an announcement, anything like that, you can use replace strings, which essentially will fill in the student's name. So instead of saying welcome class here, I can use a replace string, which is, I'm going to make my screen larger so you can see. It's using this curly bracket. And I use first name, no spaces between, and then I close the curly bracket. And what that's going to look like, I have this little preview icon. Where's my preview? Got to move my thing. This little preview icon will show me what it's going to look like. And now you're going to see my name in the system is admin Alyssa. So it says welcome admin Alyssa. If you did this, it would say welcome Claire or Ivana. And when your students view it, it's going to say welcome student's name. So this is another way to kind of personalize it for your students, so that when they, sorry, I have a lot of windows that you guys can't see. So when they view that announcement, it now says their name here, and so it feels like this is something for them. It also, you can use this in many areas of the course to make it seem like you're talking directly to them and what's next for them. So those are replace strings and video notes, just a really fun way to kind of personalize the content that's inside of Brightspace. The last kind of fun thing I'm just going to mention before I get into the checklist, awards, and intelligent agents is release conditions. So release conditions are also available in almost every tool that you use in Brightspace. I think the most common usage of it would be in content. And release conditions means you put some rules around when students can see certain information. So a good example of this is, let's say I have my content, I have the syllabus and I want them to read the syllabus. Let's say this is the beginning of the semester. I want them to read the syllabus. I might put a release condition that they can't see my week's checklist that we're going to talk about later until they have read the syllabus. And so an example of this is if I click on my checklist module, this checklist module, I set up release conditions that basically says students have to visit the topic called syllabus sample, which is what my syllabus was called, before they can see the checklist. So it's a nice way to kind of release content in a systematic way so that they're not seeing everything all at once, and you don't have to remember to go make it available. You can make it linear so that they have to look at something before looking at the next thing before looking at the next thing. There's a lot of different options in here. We're not going to go through them all because I do want to get through the 3 engagement tools that we're going to talk about. But if I were to show you all the different types of conditions that you can release on, is you can release something after they've submitted an assignment. So you can release, a better example of this if I scroll down, you can release something based on a score on a quiz, let's say. So if the student scored, you know, under 50% on a specific quiz, you can release some additional content that's only visible to those students who scored poorly on a test. It's a really powerful tool. Again, like I said, the most common one is basically to put, you know, they can't see this until they viewed a piece of content. And so that would be this section here. But it's a really powerful tool that I just want to make you aware of, because we're going to come back to this when we talk about awards and how you can, because awards are basically set on these release conditions, or you can manually attach them. But I just want to talk about those release conditions really fast. Okay, so now we'll slow down a little bit, and we're going to talk about 3 different types of engagement tools: checklists, awards and badges, and intelligent agents. So checklists first. Checklists are, they're not gradable. There's not a necessarily convenient way for you to see whether students have completed their checklist. It's more for student controlled management of their own assignments and completion. So checklists are a good tool to remind students what it is that you want them to do. So if you're not ready to kind of dive into adding all the stuff to Brightspace, or you're just not sure how you're going to kind of organize this, checklists are a great way to organize that for students. So I'm going to view as a student the checklist that I have in here, so you get what I mean regarding what a checklist is before we start building it. And I got a fun little award there. Oh, I have to view the syllabus first. That's my restriction that I've set up, that the student has to view my syllabus before they see my checklist. Don't mind me. I'm just going to remove my condition so it no longer does that. Okay, forget that. I'm just gonna impersonate myself as a student to see. I must have had some other rules set up on those conditions, on that checklist. Okay, so as a student, if I click on this sample checklist that I have, I've set this up to tell students what I want them to do for a certain week. So instead of having a link to these assignments where they have to read all the instructions, I'm just giving them a list of things that they need to do this week. So it's a reminder. Did you read chapters 1 and 2? Did you complete the week 1 discussion? And I linked directly to that discussion. Did you meet with your group? Did you take the practice test? So this is a way for me to put something in here that lets the students keep control of their own schedule and remember to kind of, what do you call that? Like self-guided learning, where they're like, okay, did I do all the things I was supposed to do? Self-directed learning. Thank you. So did I do the things that I was meant to do? So how do we set something like this up? I'm going to go back to the instructor view. So if I go to content and I click upload create, there's an option at the bottom of that that says new checklist. So very similar to everything you want to add to Brightspace. It's right in the same upload create dropdown, new checklist. Now on this page, the first thing I'm going to do is going to give it a title. So this is going to be my week 13 or whatever week we'll be on when we return, you know, class activities. I'm gonna make it visible to users right now just so I don't forget. You can keep it hidden while you're still building. The instructions in here are simply, you know, below, use the checklist below to ensure you completed all tasks. And then I'll click save. Once I've created that, that's just kind of the header. Then it's time for me to create my list. So in here, I'm going to add a new list. And the way checklists work is the overall, I can have multiple lists within one checklist. So it's kind of like a category and then all the tasks for that category. So in this case, I just want one checklist. So I'm still going to call this, I'm kind of going to be redundant, but it's going to be the week 13 activities. Then where it says add a new task to this list, I'm going to do the first task, which is, before in the example I showed, I was asking questions. Did you do this? Did you do that? I can write this task however I'd like. So in this case, I might just say read chapter 13. Then, and I can add specific, you know, reminders to them. If they're not doing all of this on Brightspace, I can add a due date for it that I'm just telling them that's when you should have read it by. I don't need to add all of those details. I can just skip down to my next task, which might be complete the discussion. And then the third one is take the reading quiz, let's say, right? So it's just a reminder of the 3 things that they need to do. Now, I could be done with this. I can save and close and my checklist is built. But I can make it even easier for students to find the things that they need to do by using the added description, which will open up that HTML editor that I'm used to in every different place. And once again, I could add that video note if I wanted to, but I can use this thing here called a quick link. A quick link lets you link to a specific activity that you've already built in the class, and then they don't have to go searching for this thing. You've put it directly in the checklist. So if I use insert quick link, and in this case, it's a discussion that I want them to respond to, and I know I've built that discussion, but to make it really easy for them, I'm going to link directly to the discussion I need them to message. So these are my forums that I've created, and then I have my introduction discussion. And it puts a link right in here, and I can add text, you know, here's a link to the discussion. Or I don't need to, and I can click update. So it's really powerful, and it helps students go to one place to find everything that they need. Another way I've seen this used is just at the end of each module, an instructor might create a checklist to be like, did you do it all? Now that I've created this, there's not much else I need to do here. I can create a new list, which is, let's say I want to do week 14 right in here. Likely you'd want a whole nother checklist for that. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go back to content. And here's that new checklist that I created. And if I were to view this as a student again, they see week 13 class activities, use a checklist to ensure you complete all the tasks. And I might not include the word below because then they might be looking below for it and it's not below. So I can click on that and I can see here's those 3 things that I need to do. Okay, I did. And they're getting a little completion as they complete that checklist, which is really nice. This is, just so you know, and you've probably already recognized this, Brightspace already has these built-in checkboxes for everything that they do in Brightspace. So if they viewed this checklist or I viewed the syllabus, I haven't taken the syllabus sign-off quiz, so I didn't get a check mark for that. So it already has this built-in, like, what am I supposed to do? But it's another kind of validation point to use a checklist as a way for even at the end of a week or at the end of the term or at the end of a unit to be like, did you do these things before we move into the other unit? So that's how checklists can be used. Are there any questions about checklists?
No, thanks.
So you created a module under content just for all your checklists, and then you'll put each weekly checklist in that module. Is that how you did this?
That's how I did this, but that's not how you have to do it. So I might even do, if I had a module for week 13 with all the week 13 tasks,
Okay.
I could simply create let me just bring this module up, because this was just for the training, but I can move this checklist into week 13.
Okay.
And it be there along with all the things that they're going to do for week 13.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to, you could have a module that's all the checklists, so they just go there for like, what do I do for week 13? If you named it like that, or you can build out your modules organized by week and put your checklist inside of those weeks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Awards. Have any of you guys, if you, again, for those of you who do see the yes, no, and if you don't see the yes, no in the participant window, you can chat it. Have any of you ever tried using awards or badges inside of Brightspace yet? Okay, not a lot. Cool. So awards and badges are a really powerful tool to help engage students and, add some gamification to your class. And they could be done, you can issue them to students manually or automatically through those release conditions that we were talking about before. So let's talk a little bit about awards and badges. So under course admin, where you can essentially find all of your back-end tools, we have a section for awards. If your course admin doesn't look like mine, it might be organized by category, and then the awards are down in the assessment section. So I currently have some example awards here in this class, and then we'll create some from scratch as well. On this first page, if you do have awards in your class, you're going to see a list of all your students. So these are my students who are enrolled in this class, and these are the awards that they've received, that they've earned based on certain criteria or me manually issuing them to them. So this is a test. I got a discussion poster and I got a most improved performance. And this is kind of a leaderboard for you. Students don't see this page. They can't see where they compare to others, but they can access all of their awards from, actually, and I'll go there really quick just so you know, because you're like, how will my students know? From their homepage, if they go to my Brightspace and they click on awards, they'll see a list of all the awards that they've earned. And this might show me way too many because I'm an administrator. I see everybody. So that's how students would find out the awards that they've received. They also get a notification and they get an alert up here, and the next time they log in, they get a pop-up. You may have seen it briefly when I logged in, when I impersonated one of my students. I got a pop-up saying that they got an award. So those are all the ways that students find out that they have awards. Just like in most places in Brightspace, we have a lovely list of tabs up here of how we're going to move through creating these awards. So the first is I'm going to click on course awards. If I were to click on my awards, those are awards that I've earned, me as an instructor even, not necessarily in this class, but just generally. The view available awards are all the awards that are available for me. So again, if students look at this from their awards page, they can see all the awards that they could potentially earn. And then the award icon library, we're going to look at later as we build an award. So the first thing that I'm going to see is on this course awards page are all the awards that I might have available already in my course without me having to create them. This can happen if like at the district level, a few were created as a sample and they were made available in all the classes, or if you created an award and made it available in all of your classes. And so you'll see that option. Likely though, you might have an empty list here with nothing that's available to you. So we'll create a brand new one. So if I'm ready, I want to create an award for students who completed a checklist, maybe. Let's use that as my award. So I'm going to click Add Award to Course. And this is going to let me see all the different kinds of awards that I can choose from. So I don't have to create one from scratch. I can look through this list of, oh, there's an academic achievement award, and there's usually a description. Instructors can create awards and make them available, you know, to share them. And this is, I might see someone who created something that was shared. So I can look through this to see if something matches what I want, or I can decide, you know what, these don't really match what I want. I'm going to create my own. So I can click Create. And here I'm going to make this completed all tasks. All week 13 tasks award. So in my description, that's where I'm going to put, you know, this award will be, this is awarded to students who have completed the checklist for week 13. This will help you and your students. So both of you guys will see this. So this description is for you to communicate clearly why it is that they received this badge.
Are awards connected to the grade book at all, or that's totally a separate part of it? It's totally just like a motivational tool, right?
Yes, but you can assign, you can release a reward or issue an award to someone based off of a score that they received in the grade book. So like either an overall column in the grade book or a specific assignment that's in the grade book. You can connect it that way in terms of them only seeing it or they getting it if they've achieved something in the grade book.
So it could be like a result of the grade book. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So here in the availability is where I can choose, is it available to all of my classes, so that any class I go to ever, I'm going to be able to use this same award again and issue it to students there. And or do I want to make this available to other people? So if I were to choose to make this available to other people, all instructors would see this in their course, just like the list you saw out there. So that's your choice when you're creating this. I can also restrict this instead of making it available to everyone. That basically just restricts it to this specific course that I'm building it in. And I don't want to see it in my other courses, and I don't want to share it with others. You will always be able to see your own awards that you've created. I don't know how to say expiration, I'm going to call it. This is, when does that badge expire? So this raises a lot of questions oftentimes, which is, what should I put? Do I put a year? Do I put the end of the semester? Do I put, like, what do I put here? It's not that serious to put an expiration on here if it's like it was for this class and it's just theirs, you know, they can take it with them. You don't have to put an expiration on it. The expiration, I would imagine, is more for if you if it's like, you know, they get this like something that's specific to a year. So like they have to retake this test, or they're not really a completer until, you know, after a year that expires or whatever it is. But you don't, you can put never expires, and it's just a badge that they have. You can also put the end of your semester. Or you can use some other time restriction. So like, you know, they get it for 3 months or whatever, but then it disappears from their list of badges earned. So it's up to you how you decide to make badges expire. Next, you would choose your award image. So there's two options. You can choose from the existing library of images. So in Brightspace, we have a bunch to choose from. They're kind of simplistic, but you can typically find something that matches. Like if I wanted to do, you know, the checklist that they've completed a checklist, I might use like the badge ribbon or a trophy or a thumbs up. So a lot of these will meet the need that I have. Ooh, a checklist badge. So there's one that fits exactly what I'm doing. So I can select that, or I can upload my own icon. So there's many, many websites that will, that you can search like, oh, create free badges, and you can create your own, or you can build something in like Word and like save that as an image, and you can upload that too. So the options are limitless, but there are a bunch inside of our existing library that you can choose too. Then the issuer name. So this is, you know, badges in the world of badges can be quite official. Like Microsoft issues badges, like if you take a course through their company, and there's a lot of companies that will use badges. Badges have become very popular over the last few years. You can add badges to your LinkedIn profile when you finish, you know, certification exams or things like that. There's like official badging that occurs. So that's where this like issuer name, issuer URL, issuer contact comes into play, is for someone on the outside looking at like a LinkedIn badge in this case, would be able to tell where that came from. So in this case, I might call the issuer name like Brightspace, and then include, or like CCC Brightspace, and include the name of the course, you know, or something that indicates that it came from you. You can leave it as Brightspace. It works that way as well. And the issuer URL, you can leave as brightspace.com. The issuer contact, though, I would put your own email address in here, so that if someone wanted to find out about that issue of that badge, they can contact you. So you can be like, oh, that was for a checklist in my class. You know, these aren't that serious where someone might put this on their LinkedIn profile, but the idea behind it is that these could be more official. So putting your email address in here will also inform the students that that's where it came from, if they can't tell that it came from your class. So I'm also going to leave this check mark that says use this award in my spring 2020 course that I'm using now, and I'll click save. So now I've created this badge. My name of it is completed all week 13 tasks award. I can edit that award, which would just take me back to the page that I was on. And I can edit the properties of that award to actually start putting rules around it to issue. If I didn't do any of that, if I was just like, okay, great, here's my award, I can go to the class list and I can manually issue awards. I don't have to set up rules. So now that I've created that award, I could click on my name and manually issue that. So here I would choose the completed all week 13 tasks award. I'm issuing her that award, and I'm entering some criteria. So this is the reason why they received it. You completed all the tasks. And then I'm going to click issue, and that student now gets that award manually. But let's say I don't want to do that manually. That's a lot of work, and I know that the system can automatically issue that award based on them completing that checklist. So in that case, I can actually edit the properties of that award, and the credits, I don't know what this means. I put 0. You can put any number in here, but I'm going to put 0 because I don't really, it's not real credits that they're getting anyways. But the most important part is the release conditions here. So if I click create, I can choose, there's a checklist section here, and I can say a completed checklist, and then I choose which checklist. So in here, I can't see because my screen, I've got something covering it. Here's my week 13 class activities checklist. And then I'm going to create that. So now this is my condition. It completes, I have to complete this activity in order to be awarded this checklist. And I can click save. And now it has one condition. It'll automatically issue this reward whenever one of my students complete that checklist. The other thing I want to show you in there, like we were talking about, if I create another thing here, I want to show you all these release condition options again, is where we were talking about grades. You can place this on them receiving a specific grade value on a grade item. So if they get a 90% on a test, you can issue an award that is like high achiever. If they have if you want it on their total score in the grade book, that's the final calculated grade column. You would choose this last one and choose what score that's your criteria for that score. If it was like a specific quiz that you had, you can determine if they get so much, like if they get 90% on this exam that you had in the class, that they get this award that is like the Great Job Award. It's just a motivator. And the release conditions are really, you have a plethora of options to issue awards based on. So that's the awards. I've got mine on the checklist. And then when I click save, this award will issue once students hit those criteria. I was at a conference earlier this year where the people, I was watching a gamification presentation, and they were talking about how it was like an accounting class, and the instructor used 3 different levels of like an accountant, an entry-level accountant, and some other, I don't know, these 3 levels, and it was all based on like what the student's score was at a given time in the grade book. And so all semester they're trying to, increase from an entry-level, intern up to the CPA, accountant, owner of his own business kind of thing. And so their awards would change based on what score they currently had in the grade book or what their final grade was. So it's a really cool like motivator and a way to add some gamification in your class. That's awards, badges and awards. Are there any questions?
Yes, I was wondering, is there, because the list is pretty long, and unfortunately the name does not always, say what this restriction does. Is there a list of, like with explanation what each one of these restrictions do? Or could you possibly create one for us?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Maureen or Felicia to maybe check on if you can Google Brightspace's community and see, there might be a list of what each of these are, but if you read them, they're typically straightforward. I just have to move my toolbar. So the first one is under the assignment, it's a submission to a folder is whether a student submitted to that, a score on a rubric for a specific assignment. But I understand what you mean. Like there's a long list and it's kind of endless. And I think Brightspace might have a list of explaining what all those release options are. So I'll ask them to provide that in the chat. Good question.
Thank you. No,
Any others?
You can figure out what the restriction is more or less by it, but it would be great if there was at least short explanation. Yeah. What does it do? I mean, what is the condition? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions on awards or badges? It's a lot. You can really see how powerful this tool is. One day and many years to come, when we're so familiar with the basics, we can start, exploring these fun things, or maybe try one badge this year, or something like that. Okay, so transitioning to our last engagement tool. I'm sorry, I have so many windows. I got to move my things around. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about is intelligent agents. So intelligent agents are Brightspace's ability to automatically email students based on certain criteria happening or not happening. So let me go again under course admin. Our intelligent agents tool lives under communication, or if you are alphabetizing by name, it's alphabetized. So intelligent agents. Intelligent agents can be used to communicate. So basically it's to alleviate you from having to email students when something's about to be due, or someone missed the deadline, or a student hasn't logged in for several days, or any of those release conditions that we're seeing in the badges. Like a discussion post hasn't been completed or a quiz hasn't been done. There's like so many different options that you might have a reason to create an intelligent agent. What the intelligent agent does is it basically runs in the background. So you set up some criteria, you set up a generic email that the students will receive, and you set up rules around that. And then it runs every day, or you can manually run it, and it'll email those students who fall within that criteria. So I have some examples here that we'll talk through before we try to build one ourselves. This first one I have is 5-day no access notification. So what I've set up here is that it gave me a little description that I wrote in to remind myself. This runs every day, and it sends an email to any student who hasn't accessed the course for 5 days. So if I sent this today, it would be the 5 users identified today. And let's say someone in my class hasn't logged in for 4 days, so they won't get this email. But tomorrow, they're going to get this email if they don't log in, because it's going to have been 5 days since they've logged in. So this is just a way, it's really helpful for online learning, and this is something now that we're kind of all virtual. It's a good way to remind students like, hey, you haven't been in the class for a while, and all of our stuff is in the online class. So it's really a useful tool for that kind of no access. Another one I have here is, I didn't create this example. It's a midterm appreciation, keep up the good work, automatic email where it's sent to learners who are passing the course at day 20, at the 20-day mark of the course, which means, and all of these rules you set up as you're building this, which means based on their final calculated grade on the 20th day of class, who is passing, and they're all gonna get this email saying like, you guys are doing great. There's another example here, week 1 discussion, introduction, past due. So you set this up to get an email. If they haven't, every day this runs and someone hasn't submitted their discussion, they're going to get this email being like, it's past due, you have to do it. So it's just little reminders that can help you help your students, because a lot of times we are doing this as instructors. I was working with an instructor last semester who had a list of templated emails in her email that she just keeps on hold for all of these things. You haven't submitted a discussion, you haven't done this. And she manually messages those students. So she just has her template kind of, she can copy and paste it, and then she'll come into Brightspace and see who hasn't done that assignment. And then she'll send them an email out with that, you know, all the text that she wanted to send it. This takes that pressure off where you can just set it up and it kind of runs. The little icon here is telling me right now that it's not enabled. What this is really great for is every semester, if I copy from this semester to next semester, all my intelligent agents will copy over too, but let's say those things aren't due yet. I don't want my students getting all these notifications. Well, luckily, Brightspace built in this fail-safe, where as soon as it copies from one course to another, it disables all of these notifications so that each semester you go in and you can change the dates and you can change the rules of them, because maybe you might not be doing that one assignment the next semester or whatever it might be. So how do we create, and the example I'm going to use is this no course access for 5 days. So the first thing you want to do, the very first thing you want to do is actually go to settings before I even start building my intelligent agents. And that's because inside of settings is where you need to set a custom value for where the emails are coming from. And the reason you have to do this is if you don't do this, it will still send, but it's going to come from this email address. And when the students see it, you're messaging them like it's you. So in your email, you're like, hi, you know, student, you didn't do this thing, blah, 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 blah. And then you sign your name or whatever. And so the student thinks they're emailing you, they reply to that email, and it's not going to you, it's going to the help desk. And the help desk pretty much just deletes the email because it's not tracked. So you want to make sure, especially because your students might just reply to those emails because intelligent agents are coming to the email, you want to make sure that you put your information in here. So here I include, or you can say Professor Tobin, whatever you want, and then, so then it's coming from your email address. And then I'll click save. So once I set that up, I'm ready to build my intelligent agent. So the first thing I'm going to do is click New, and you're going to see all the different types of settings that we can set, but we're really going to be focused on no course access. So I'm going to call this no course access for, I'm going to do 3 days, just so it's a little different than the example I had already built. The description is where I can remind myself what this was for. Issued when student hasn't accessed course in 3 days. This status is where I can say it's enabled or disabled, meaning like if I'm building this and I'm not going to be ready to use it for a while, I might not check that box. But if I'm ready to build it and then I want it to start going, I'm going to keep that checked. So now we go through the criteria. The first is the role in the class. Well, I want this to go to every single student. So I'm going to keep it all users visible in the class list, because all the students are going to be, this criterion is going to be matched up against all of the users. The next option is really important, especially if you're doing course access. There's a misconception between login versus course activity, or course access. Login, even though this says login activity and it says user, this option here, if I check this, user has not logged in for at least 3 days, this logged in is logged into Brightspace, the system. It is not accessing your course. So students can be logging into Brightspace all the time and going into all their other courses, but if they're not coming into your course, they'll still never get the email, because this login activity is not course access. It's just log into the system. So this is not the one you would use. That's really important because there's a lot of places where it shows last login from student, and if it says login and not course access, it means it's just their login to the system. So course activity is actually the one that you want to choose for this, and I want to choose user has not accessed the course for at least 3 days. I don't really have a use for the second one there. So here, now that I've done this, I don't need to attach any release conditions, because this is the only condition I need, is that students have not accessed the course for at least 3 days. So I can skip to the next section here. If I were building this off of students did not complete a certain assignment yet, I wouldn't actually choose this. I wouldn't choose either of these. I would come straight to the release conditions, and I'd create one on, so let's say they haven't, hold on, I can't see the whole thing. No completed quiz attempt. Sorry, all my windows are in the way. If they haven't done a quiz that's due, I'm going to choose this no completed quiz attempt. And I'm going to say, you know, let's say they haven't done quiz 1 yet, and that was due last week, that I'm going to attach it to that, so that anyone who meets this criterion, who hasn't done this quiz, will get this email that I finished. So I'm going to remove this condition because I'm only concerned with this doesn't have activity for 3 days. But that's how you would associate, you know, a specific condition. Now, down in the actions is what I want to do with this. So the first option is take action only the first time the agent's criteria are satisfied. So that means if today I run it and everyone who hasn't logged in for 3 days, they get an email today, but then tomorrow, if those same 3 still haven't logged in, they're not going to get another email. Versus what I probably want is take action every time the agent is evaluated and the agent's criteria are satisfied for a user. What that is today, if someone didn't log in for 3 days, they're getting an email, and tomorrow, if they didn't log in for 3 days, they're getting an email, and the next day, until they log in, or until they access this course, they're going to be getting those notifications. And same for the quiz. If it was a quiz that they haven't done yet, I might choose not to send them an email every day. I might just choose to do it that one time, and then it's their fault if they don't do it. I'm not going to be sending them the constant reminders. So it depends on what you're trying to do. And then there's little hints on the screen as you're building this. Then sending an email. So I could just build this intelligent agent for me to get a list of people who are doing this, and I don't have to take action at all. I can just run that list, run that report for myself. But the beautiful point of intelligent agents is to be able to send an automatic email 2 students who meet that criteria with the messaging. So in this case, this is where I'm going to say, I want to send this email. And this is where there are specific replace strings that you will use here so that you're not putting the individual student's email address in here. It's just going to put who is receiving it. So here where it says, what special email addresses can I use? This pop-up is going to show you, just like we did the first name in the beginning here, it's not first name in here, it's initiating user. So I can use initiating user in this field, and it's going to automatically send an email to the student who is meeting the criterion. And then in the subject, there's another option. What replace strings can I use in the subject? I can use the name of the course, and I hate how so this is the name of the org unit. Org unit is your course. So you would use org unit name would basically be Spring 2020, English 101. It's not the most clear what these mean. And then when I want to write my student's first name in that email, I can use initiating user first name, and that would be here. I'd be saying, Alyssa, that's initiating user first name. You have not completed this, or you have not logged in for 3 days. We miss you. Whatever that message is that you want to be sent to students who have not logged in 3 days, or to students who have not completed that assignment. You can attach files if you'd like. You can determine what kind of format you want that in. HTML is, typically used. And then you can set a schedule for this. So in the scheduling place, I'm gonna check that box to use a schedule, and then I'm gonna update the schedule. And this is where I can tell it, do I want to run this daily? So I would, in this case of the 3, they haven't accessed the course in 3 days. I want that to repeat daily, and I want it to repeat every single day, because every day I want anyone caught who not caught, but like anyone to get a communication if they haven't logged in so many days. And then I can set when I want that to be, run through. So this might be the beginning of the semester, and this might be the end of the semester. Or let's say you just give them a week of reminders to finish a quiz after the due date, and then you're not going to remind them anymore. You can set those dates here. And then I'm going to click Save and Close. So now my new one here, this no course access for 3 days, it's going to run again today, or it may have, no, it's going to run again today. And I can do a practice run to see who fits into that. And it's just going to tell me, it's not going to do anything, but it's going to show me how many users meet that criterion. So now 6 users were identified. And so I can see who are the 6 people who haven't logged in. So no action taken means it didn't send him an email because I was just doing a practice. But you can do this practice run just to find out who didn't do X, Y, Z without having to go look in many other places to find out. Intelligent agents are a really powerful tool to do that kind of thing. Back to intelligent agents. So that's the intelligent agents. It's really powerful. And it can be used for a plethora of things, but it can kind of automate emails for you to help communicate with students. It's a lot, but it's really powerful. So I'm going to stop there and see if we have any questions. We've got 4 minutes. We did really good. We have 4 minutes. Are there any questions I can answer in that time? Did I overwhelm everybody?
It's a general Brightspace question. It's not exactly what we're doing, unless someone else has a question. So I think I've been in some of your sessions and they're great. And so I'm an adult educator. Some of my students are still having some problems, logging into their email in Brightspace. So I'm always looking for some workarounds. We have till April 13th, but that's coming soon. So if I do want to do a public blog in addition to my Brightspace, because again, anyone can check a public blog. I'm thinking it might be a nice transition workaround. And you have a lot more, Brightspace is new for adult educators, so these have been great workshops. Where do you think I would post again, I want to make sure that if I do a public blog, that people can also see it via Brightspace, because why not? So students can be literally on the same page. Where do you think I would put on Brightspace that kind of link? Would that be under resources? What is your recommendation? So I want to link to a public blog.
Yeah. Well, if I'm thinking at the most basic level, I would put it in an announcement,
Yes.
because that's the first page students see when they log
Put it
in if they can't figure out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've got real basic users here, so I appreciate this advice.
Yeah.
And so I could even make a little video note and put the link there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll work on that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm also trying to think if there's a way, like if you wanted to keep things kind of hidden, you might use like a Google, Google Doc to post your information and just share the link to the Google Doc with them. And then only people who have that link can see it, as opposed to it just being public in the world.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to make it as easy and accessible to more students, catch up to using their adult ed students, their email and their Brightspace. I think there's just going to be a transition time for our students is what I'm thinking. So I appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you, Elisa. Please send us the email. This is way above
Ivana.
what my, yes, this is way above, but it's going to come very handy, especially with notifying students who have not, logged in, to do their stuff or even check what we were doing. This is perfect. And you don't have to do it manually. You can set it up. I think this is absolutely brilliant. And all of it.
It really can save you time.
So much.
You're welcome. I'll send the recording as soon as we're done.
I'm waiting for that link. Great. Thank you very much. See you at some other seminar.
Yes.